Let's just be casual, no labels, she said for 6 months while I paid for everything and met her family. The irony wasn't lost on me that someone so afraid of commitment had no problem committing to my wallet. My phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I already knew it was Whitney before I looked at the screen. I was exhausted from debugging a critical system failure at work all day, but I answered anyway because that's what I'd been doing for 6 months. "Ethan, I'm having a complete meltdown," she sobbed through the phone. "The Morrison presentation is tomorrow and I can't get the data visualizations right and my boss is going to fire me and I can't breathe properly." Whitney worked as a junior coordinator at a marketing firm downtown, and these crisis calls had become our routine. I grabbed my keys, stopped at her favorite Thai place for Pad CW, and picked up chamomile tea from the 24-hour grocery store. By the time I reached her apartment, she was pacing around in oversized sweatpants, laptop open on her kitchen counter, looking genuinely panicked. "You came," she said, relief flooding her face as she threw her arms around me. I spent the next 3 hours helping her reorganize her presentation, fixing her charts, and talking her through her anxiety while she ate the food I'd brought. We fell asleep on her couch together, my arm around her as she finally relaxed. The next morning, she made coffee and smiled at me with that grateful expression I'd grown accustomed to. "Thank you for last night. You're literally the best," she said, kissing my cheek. "I love that we can keep this light and fun without all the relationship pressure. No expectations, no drama, just us enjoying each other's company." Light and fun. That's what she called our arrangement where I functioned as her personal crisis management team, financial sponsor, and emotional support system. I nodded and finished my coffee, watching her get ready for the presentation I'd essentially saved, wondering when casual had started feeling so much like a full-time job. The previous weekend, I'd spent $400 taking her to that new rooftop restaurant she'd been wanting to try, listened to her talk about her career goals for 2 hours, and driven her to her parents' house for a family barbecue where her mom hugged me and said she was so glad Whitney had found such a thoughtful boyfriend. Whitney had quickly corrected her, "We're not officially dating, Mom. Just seeing where things go." But somehow I was still good enough to help her dad fix his computer and listen to her sister complain about her divorce over potato salad I'd brought. As I drove to work that morning, I realized I'd been seeing where things go for half a year while somehow never actually arriving anywhere except deeper into a situation that benefited her completely and left me constantly questioning where I stood. I should have recognized the pattern months earlier, but it crystallized perfectly at Whitney's company holiday party in December. She'd asked me to be her +1 3 weeks in advance, helped her pick out a dress that cost more than my monthly gym membership, and spent 2 hours getting ready at my apartment because the lighting was better. When we walked into the downtown hotel ballroom, she immediately grabbed my arm and whispered, "You look amazing tonight. Thanks for coming with me." But when her colleagues approached our table, she introduced me the same way every time. "This is my friend Ethan. He works in data systems." Friend. Not the guy she'd been sleeping with for 6 months, not the person who'd helped her through every work crisis, not even someone I'm seeing. Just friend. I smiled politely and shook hands while her coworkers made small talk about my job, watching Whitney charm everyone with stories about her latest marketing campaigns. She was brilliant at networking, working the room like she was born for it, and I genuinely admired her social skills. But I spent most of the evening making conversation with her boss's wife while Whitney collected business cards and scheduled follow-up coffee meetings. When they announced the raffle prizes, she squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "I hope we win the wine country weekend. We could really use a getaway." Even in her casual moments, she naturally thought of us as a unit, just never when it came to defining what we actually were. The cognitive dissonance was exhausting. 2 weeks later, my own company threw a celebration dinner for landing the Henderson Group contract, a major client I'd been pursuing for 8 months. I'd invited Whitney weeks in advance, explained how important this was for my career, even bought her a new dress because she'd mentioned not having anything appropriate for corporate events. She showed up looking stunning and immediately started working the room again, but this time she was collecting contacts for herself rather than celebrating my achievement. While my colleagues congratulated me on the biggest win of my career, Whitney was in the corner exchanging Instagram handles with our client's marketing director, discussing potential collaboration opportunities. "Your girlfriend is really ambitious," my coworker Jake commented as we watched her pitch herself to another table. "We're not officially together," I found myself saying automatically, echoing her language. "Just figuring things out." Jake raised an eyebrow but didn't push it. Later that night, as I drove her home, I finally brought up what had been bothering me for months. "Whitney, can we talk about what this is between us?" She shifted in the passenger seat, already defensive. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we spend every weekend together, I've met your entire family, you call me when you need support, but you introduce me as your friend. It's confusing." She was quiet for several blocks before responding. "I just think labels complicate things, you know? What we have is really special, and I don't want to ruin it by putting pressure on it or making it into something it doesn't need to be." "But what is it exactly?" "It's us enjoying each other's company without all the relationship drama. I've seen too many good connections get destroyed because people rush into serious commitments before they're ready." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "I value what we have too much to risk messing it up with expectations and obligations. This organic development is so much better than forcing something artificial." Organic development. I'd been organically developing into her unpaid personal assistant while she organically avoided committing to anything that might limit her options. But her explanation sounded so reasonable, so mature and thoughtful, that I convinced myself she was protecting something precious rather than simply using me. The weekend trip to Napa Valley was supposed to be romantic, but it became the moment I finally saw our situation clearly. Whitney had been dropping hints about wanting to visit wine country for months, showing me Instagram posts from her friends' trips and sighing wistfully about how amazing it looked. I'd planned everything carefully, booked a boutique hotel with vineyard views, made reservations at 3 highly rated restaurants, and arranged private tastings at 2 different wineries. The entire weekend cost me nearly $1,200, but I convinced myself it was an investment in our future together. The first red flag should have been her Instagram stories. While I was literally standing next to her at the first winery, carrying her purse and the shopping bags full of wine she'd bought, she posted a story with the caption, "Living my best single life in wine country," with heart emojis and location tags. Single life. I watched her type it while I held her purchases, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. At dinner that night, our sommelier was this charming guy named Marcus who clearly knew his wines and had an easy smile that Whitney immediately responded to. What started as professional wine recommendations quickly became flirtatious banter while I sat there like a third wheel at my own romantic dinner. "You have such a sophisticated palate," Marcus told her, leaning closer than necessary to explain the tasting notes. "Most people can't pick up those subtle oak undertones." Whitney laughed and touched his arm. "I've always been good at detecting complexity." The irony wasn't lost on me. She spent the next 20 minutes asking Marcus about his background, his favorite vineyards, his recommendations for other restaurants in the area, all while I sat across from her eating an $85 steak and watching her flirt with another man on the weekend I'd paid for. When Marcus finally left our table, she turned back to me with bright eyes. "Wasn't he interesting? I love meeting passionate people who really know their craft." "Yeah, he seemed nice," I managed, trying to keep my voice neutral. "He gave me his card. Said if I ever wanted a private tour of the vineyard where he used to work, he'd be happy to show me around." She held up his business card with his personal number written on the back. The next morning over breakfast at the hotel, she casually dropped the bomb that shattered whatever illusions I'd been maintaining. "I downloaded Tinder again last night," she said, buttering her croissant like she was discussing the weather. "Just to see what's out there. It's actually kind of fun." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "You're back on dating apps?" "We're not exclusive or anything, so I figured why not? It's not like I'm looking for anything serious, but it's entertaining to see who's around." She showed me her phone screen with multiple matches and messages. "Look at this guy. He's a surgeon. And this one owns a restaurant in San Francisco." I stared at the phone, processing what she was telling me. While I'd been planning romantic weekends and meeting her family, she'd been keeping her options open and shopping for upgrades. "I thought we had something special," I said quietly. We do. That's exactly why I don't want to ruin it with pressure or expectations. This way we can just enjoy each other without all the jealousy and possessiveness that comes with traditional relationships. Traditional relationships, like basic commitment and respect, were outdated concepts instead of foundational elements of genuine partnership. I paid the hotel bill in silence, loaded our bags into my car, and drove the 2 hours back to the city without saying another word. Whitney tried to fill the silence with commentary about the scenery and questions about my mood, but I was done engaging. Something had shifted permanently during that conversation, and I couldn't pretend anymore that we were building toward anything real. I didn't make any dramatic announcements or have any explosive confrontations. I simply stopped being available for Whitney's convenience. When her next crisis text came 3 days later about needing help with a client presentation, I responded professionally, "Sounds stressful. Maybe ask someone from your team for input." Instead of rushing over with food and emotional support, I went to the rock climbing gym I'd been meaning to try for months. When she called that weekend asking if I wanted to check out the new art exhibit downtown, I told her I had plans. I did have plans, just not the kind she was used to. I'd signed up for evening photography classes at the community college, something I'd always wanted to pursue but never had time for because my evenings were usually spent managing Whitney's various dramas. The first class was incredible, learning about composition and lighting from an instructor who actually cared about developing our artistic vision. For the first time in months, I was investing energy into something that fulfilled me rather than depleting me. Whitney's messages became increasingly confused as the days passed. "Where have you been? You're being weird and distant." Then more demanding, "I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come over tonight?" When I declined, explaining I had class, she seemed genuinely baffled. "Class? Class? Since when do you take classes?" Since I stopped spending all my free time being your unpaid therapist, I thought but didn't say. "Photography. I've always been interested in it." Her response came 2 hours later. "That's random. Why didn't you tell me you were doing that?" "Because we're not actually in a relationship where I need to run my decisions by you," I realized. The rock climbing group turned out to be exactly what I needed. Physical challenge, genuine camaraderie, people who showed up consistently and supported each other's goals. Nobody was using anyone else or keeping their options open. We just climbed together, grabbed beers afterward, and built actual friendships based on mutual respect and shared interests. When Whitney texted asking why I wasn't answering her calls as quickly, I took a screenshot to show my climbing partner Steve. "Dude, this girl sounds exhausting," he said, studying her increasingly demanding messages. "You've been way happier these past few weeks since you stopped talking about her constantly." He was right. I hadn't realized how much mental energy I'd been spending analyzing Whitney's mixed signals and trying to decode what she really wanted from me. Without that constant emotional drain, I felt lighter, more focused, more like myself. My work performance improved because I wasn't staying up late managing her crises. My sleep improved because I wasn't lying awake wondering what I'd done wrong or how I could prove my worth to someone who'd already decided I wasn't worth committing to. 2 weeks into my new routine, Whitney showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Saturday morning. I was getting ready for a climbing session when she knocked, holding coffee and looking genuinely distressed. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into my living room. "You've been acting completely different and I don't understand what's happening between us." "Nothing's happening between us," I said calmly, continuing to pack my climbing gear. "We're keeping things casual, remember? No expectations, no obligations." She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "But we always spend Saturdays together. You always help me when I need support. This isn't how our relationship works." "We don't have a relationship, Whitney. You've made that very clear for 6 months." The truth of my own words hit me as I said them, and I felt something like relief wash over me. 3 weeks into my photography class, I met Carmen during a lighting exercise where we were paired up to practice portrait techniques. She was a freelance graphic designer with an eye for composition that made my amateur attempts look clumsy, but instead of making me feel inadequate, she offered genuine encouragement and practical tips. "You have a really good instinct for capturing emotion," she said, reviewing the shots I'd taken of her. Most people focus so much on technical settings that they forget the human element. Carmen was direct in ways that felt refreshing after months of Whitney's ambiguous signals. When class ended, she asked if I wanted to grab coffee and discuss photography techniques. "I'd like that," I said, and she smiled. "Great. It's a date then." A date. Simple, clear, honest communication about intentions. We spent 2 hours at a nearby cafe talking about everything from camera equipment to our career goals, and she listened to my answers with genuine interest instead of scanning the room for better networking opportunities. When I mentioned my job as a data systems analyst, she leaned forward. "That must be fascinating. I work with data visualization in some of my design projects, but I've always wondered about the back-end systems that generate all that information." She actually wanted to understand what I did for a living instead of just calculating how much money I made. By our third actual date, Carmen had introduced me to her friends as Ethan, the guy I'm dating. Not my friend, not someone I'm seeing, but direct acknowledgement of what we were building together. Her friend group was welcoming and genuine, artists and professionals who included me in conversations and made plans that assumed I'd be around for future gatherings. "Carmen talks about you constantly," her best friend Lisa told me during a dinner party. "She's really happy." Happy. When was the last time someone had described Whitney as happy because of me rather than grateful for my services? Carmen and I developed an easy rhythm of shared experiences and mutual investment. She insisted on splitting dinner checks, planned activities she thought I'd enjoy, and remembered details about my interests. When I mentioned wanting to improve my landscape photography, she surprised me with information about a weekend workshop in the mountains. "I thought we could go together," she said. "I've been wanting to explore nature photography, and it could be fun to learn something new as a team." As a team, Carmen naturally thought of us as partners working toward common goals, supporting each other's growth without keeping score of who owed what to whom. She valued my emotional intelligence without exploiting it, appreciated my thoughtfulness without taking it for granted. When I helped her move to a new apartment, she insisted on hiring professional movers for the heavy furniture and cooked dinner for everyone who pitched in. "I want your help because I enjoy spending time with you," she explained, "not because I need you to do things I should handle myself." The contrast with Whitney became impossible to ignore. Where Whitney had seen my kindness as weakness to be exploited, Carmen saw it as strength to be treasured. Where Whitney had kept me in emotional limbo to maintain her options, Carmen was building something real with clear intentions and mutual respect. 4 months into our relationship, Carmen brought up exclusivity during a quiet evening at her place. "I know we haven't explicitly discussed this, but I want you to know I'm not seeing anyone else. I'm happy with what we're building together, and I'd like to make this official if you feel the same way." I felt the same way completely. "I'd love that," I told her, and she kissed me with genuine joy rather than strategic calculation. The relief of being with someone who wanted the same thing I wanted, who valued commitment instead of avoiding it, was overwhelming. For the first time in over a year, I felt like I was in an actual relationship instead of an elaborate audition for someone who might never choose me. Whitney discovered my relationship with Carmen through mutual friends at a gallery opening downtown. I didn't see her at first, but Carmen and I were featured in the event photographer's shots that got posted on social media, both of us laughing at something silly she'd whispered during the artist's presentation. We looked genuinely happy together, relaxed and comfortable in ways I'd never managed with Whitney despite months of trying. The first sign that Whitney had seen the photos came through her Instagram stories, posted at 2 a.m. the night after the gallery event. Cryptic quotes about realizing too late what you had and losing the one who truly mattered filled her feed over the next few days. Then came the song lyrics about missed opportunities and people who couldn't see what was right in front of them. Her friends started liking every post, commenting with heart emojis and "you deserve better" messages that made it clear she was painting herself as the victim of some great romantic tragedy. The midnight phone calls started exactly 1 week later. The first one came while Carmen and I were watching a movie at her place, my phone buzzing insistently from the kitchen counter. I ignored it, but Whitney left a voicemail that I played back the next morning. Her voice was thick with tears and alcohol, rambling about how she'd always known we were meant to be together but had been too scared of ruining something beautiful. She claimed she'd been protecting our connection by not rushing into labels, that she'd realized her mistake and wanted to finally give us the real chance we deserved. I deleted the message and blocked her number, but she started calling from different phones. Each voicemail was more desperate than the last, filled with confessions about how special I'd made her feel and promises about how different things would be if I gave her another opportunity. "I know I hurt you by being scared," she sobbed in one message. "But you have to understand that I was just protecting my heart because losing you would have destroyed me. Now I realize I lost you anyway by being too careful." The emotional manipulation was textbook perfect, but it felt hollow after experiencing what actual care looked like with Carmen. Whitney had never worried about losing me when she had me completely available. She'd only developed these deep feelings once I became unavailable, which told me everything about their authenticity. Carmen noticed my mood shift after the third night of blocked calls and deleted voicemails. "Someone from your past giving you trouble?" she asked gently while we were making dinner together. I told her about Whitney's campaign to win me back, expecting jealousy or insecurity. Instead, Carmen nodded thoughtfully. "That must be really uncomfortable for you. It sounds like she's realized what she gave up and is panicking." Her calm understanding made me appreciate her even more. No accusations, no demands that I handle the situation differently, just supportive recognition that this wasn't about her. Whitney's social media presence became increasingly unhinged as weeks passed without response from me. Posts about people who throw away real love for temporary infatuation and knowing your worth when others can't see it appeared daily. She shared articles about commitment-phobic people and the importance of fighting for relationships that matter. The most pathetic post came 3 weeks into her campaign. A photo of the Thai restaurant where I used to pick up her favorite takeout during her crisis nights, captioned with, "Some places hold memories that never fade." I showed it to Carmen, who actually laughed. "She's really committed to this narrative where you two had some epic love story instead of her just taking advantage of your kindness." Her perspective helped me see the situation clearly instead of getting drawn back into Whitney's emotional chaos. Whitney showed up at my apartment building on a Saturday morning 2 months after I'd started dating Carmen, bypassing the security buzzer by following another resident through the front door. I was heading out for my weekly climbing session when I found her sitting in the lobby, looking like she'd been crying for hours. "Ethan, please. We need to talk about us," she said, standing up quickly when she saw me. "There's nothing to talk about, Whitney. I'm with someone else now." "But that's exactly what I need to discuss with you. You're making a huge mistake throwing away everything we built together for some random girl you barely know." The entitlement in her voice was staggering. After 6 months of refusing to commit to anything real, she was now claiming ownership of a relationship that had never actually existed. "We didn't build anything together. You made sure of that." She followed me outside, her voice rising with desperation. "I know I made mistakes, okay? I admit that. I was scared and stupid and I didn't appreciate what I had. But I'm ready now, Ethan. I'm ready to be the girlfriend you wanted me to be." 2 months too late. It's never too late for real love. What we had was special and you know it. This girl is just a rebound. You're trying to make me jealous, and it's working. I get it. But now we can finally do this right. Her ability to rewrite history was impressive. In her version, our entire dysfunctional arrangement had been some kind of epic romance that I'd abandoned out of spite. "Whitney, listen to me carefully. I'm not trying to make you jealous. I'm not using Carmen to get back at you. I'm genuinely happy with her in ways I never was with you. That's not true. You loved me. I know you did. I loved the idea of you. I loved who I thought you could become if you ever decided I was worth committing to. But you showed me exactly what you thought of me every time you introduced me as your friend." She started crying harder, the kind of ugly, desperate tears that would have broken my heart 6 months earlier. "I was protecting us. I didn't want to rush into something and ruin what we had. What we had was you taking everything I offered while giving nothing back. That's not love, Whitney. That's exploitation. I'll make it up to you. I'll be different this time. I'll commit completely. We can make this official, get engaged, whatever you want. Just give me one more chance to prove that I can be what you need. The offer that would have meant everything to me before now felt hollow and manipulative. She wasn't offering genuine commitment. She was offering whatever she thought would get me back. I don't want you to prove anything. I'm done with auditions and proving and earning someone's affection. Carmen wanted to be with me from the beginning. No games, no tests, no hoops to jump through. Whitney stood there sobbing in front of my building, and I felt nothing but mild sympathy for someone who'd finally learned consequences existed. I hope you find what you're actually looking for, I told her. But it's not me, and it never really was. As I walked away toward my car, she called after me one last time. You'll regret this, Ethan. You're throwing away the best thing that ever happened to you. I turned back to look at her, disheveled and desperate, clinging to a fantasy version of our past. No, Whitney. The best thing that ever happened to me was realizing I deserved better than someone who saw me as a backup plan. My phone buzzed with a text from Carmen as I drove to the climbing gym. Hope you're having a great session today. Can't wait to hear about it over dinner tonight. I smiled and felt that familiar warmth of being with someone who actually wanted to share my life instead of just benefit from my presence.